Avraham Avinu, Abraham, is the founding patriarch of the Jewish people. Avram, our forefather, was born into a pagan world. There's a question in the Talmud: at what age did he recognize God? Was he 3 years old when he recognized God? Or was he 52 years old when he recognized God? It's a question. But initially, when he was born into existence, God was an unknown entity in the world. Of course, after the great flood, the world was destroyed. The only remnant of humanity was Noach and his 3 sons and their wives. They had come out of the ark. Noach, of course, as the Torah establishes him as tzaddik. He was a righteous, devout man. He had 3 sons. Shem was the most special. He was the holiest of the 3. Chum was evil. He was the least. Yefes, who's really the forefather of the Greek civilization, he was the middle of the road son. He was not evil, but he was not devoutly righteous. Ultimately, the world evolved from these 3 individuals. Shem, his children, many of them, they were devout. He had a son, Aver. Shem set up, together with his son, an institution which is known as a yeshiva, to study theology, to disseminate and fully appreciate the 7 Noahide laws, all their applications, all their nuances, all their subcategories. This was known as Yeshivas Shem Ve'aver. When Avram was born, this yeshiva existed. But it's interesting. Just as Noach had failed to impact on his generation, he was given 120 years to make a difference, to try to bring the generation back to monotheism and behaved in a more responsible way rather than depraved, incest, adultery, murder, human sacrifice. Every conceivable abomination was perpetrated by that generation. God says, I give you 120 years to bring them back. If not, the world will be destroyed with a great flood. Noah failed. Although he himself was righteous and devout and outstanding, he did not succeed. Even though Shem and Aver were monotheists with tzaddikim, the Torah refers to an individual by the name of Malki Tzedek. He was known as the king of righteousness. He was the king of Jerusalem. This is after Avram had defeated the 4 mightiest kings. The Torah tells us about this individual. And the Midrash tells us Malki Tzedek was Shem. One and the same person. Malki, from the word Melech, the king of righteousness. Melech Shalem, he was the perfect person. But in terms of his impact on humanity, regarding their beliefs and their behavior, he did not have that level of influence. However, Avram, our patriarch, he was endowed with a spirit, with a soul, with a conviction, with a charisma, that he was able to take God, who's referred to in the Torah as the God of the heaven, that God became the God of the terrestrial level, of the earth, because God became a known entity to humanity, which he was not until that moment. Avram being so special. Avram, who gave the world meaning. Maimonides Rambam, in his Laws of Idolatry, he speaks about Avram, how he had impacted on the multitudes of humanity. He created a movement. He came with tens of thousands of converts to monotheism. And the pagan kings were really worried that he would change the face of humanity. From paganism, which is believing in deities, to lahavdil, to differentiate between holy and profane, to monotheism, that God is the omnipotent sole creator and the only one who dictates and wills every aspect of creation and existence. And he succeeded. Avram is referred to as Avram Ha'ivri. Avram, the way it's translated, the Hebrew, or he had come from the other side of the river. However, the Midrash tells us the reason why he's referred to as Avram Ha'ivri, Avram, Ivri, he was one man on one side who single-handedly took on the world to impact and change their views and beliefs and values. And he succeeded. And that's why he's referred to the Ivri. Hu mitzad echad v'olam me'ever hasheni. He was on one side and the world was on the other side. He was one man against the world. How does a man, one individual, how do you take on a whole world? How is it possible? The concept or the context of ability is based on limitation. A human being only has a certain capacity, a limited capacity. So therefore, if the odds are overwhelming against the individual, it becomes an impossibility. But Avram, he had a special backing. His backing was unlimited. He was backed by God. And therefore, there was nothing that was not at his disposal, if the intent was to bring about God's presence in existence. And therefore, Avram succeeded in whatever he did. Whether he went to the kiln because he would not bow to the idolatry, he came out alive, unscathed. His clothing weren't even singed. Whether it was at a time where he had fought the mightiest kingdoms of the world, and he defeated them. Initially, there was a world war. There were 4 kings against 5 kings. The 4 had defeated the 5. And then they had taken Avram's nephew captive. He had a nephew who was not a good man, the son of his brother, who really lived evilly. And they purposely, when they had conquered the kingdom in which he lived, which was Sodom, which was known and infamous for their evil, they had taken captive because they knew that Avram would not leave a stone unturned to save his nephew. It was only to bait him. But of course, according to their understanding, if these are the 4 mightiest kings, how could one individual survive the onslaught of the 4 against 1 individual. But again, they saw him as a fanatic, as an extremist, as an irrational person. But they didn't really fully appreciate or begin to understand the essence of Avram. Avram was a man of God. He was God's representative in existence, and he was the future of humanity. He was going to reintroduce and began introducing monotheism in its correct context to existence, and he was the victor, and he won the battle.